Your boy is Nefarious, and I am here for another team report. Week 17 team report. A lot of stuff has died down. The playoff teams have been, pretty much engraved in their slots. There's a few slots still open and still fighting for, but you got your guys that already know the season's lost that have dropped out and are just waiting for the off season, and then you got some of the guys that are still playing. I recently played the Panthers. Panthers actually, I believe, has a spot secured for the wild card. I believe. Let me go ahead and check. I didn't check that before I started this. Just let me check that real quick for you. Alright, so let's take a look at the NFC. Yeah, it looks like the Carolina Panthers are pretty much secured in a playoff spot, a wild card spot at 8-8. So that NFC is looking real tough over there with the 8-8 record making the playoffs. Um, Congratulations, JT. You put in a lot of work in the league. There's nobody else that deserves a playoff spot more than you. Like I said, you put in a lot of work. Thank you for making the Premier Madden League. Thank you for creating all this fun for everybody. And can't wait for Madden 20, but for now we're still doing Madden 19, and I'm still going to be as active as I am now next season until Madden 20 comes out. I have a blast in this league. Let's go through pretty much what happened. So we both kind of had some starters going, some backups going. He might have had more backups than I did. I was letting some of the young guys play, given that my season was over. Kind of getting a feel for some other pieces that I have on my team. As you see, offensive yards gain I had. He led in rushing yards, passing yards. I led. I got more first downs. I led a turnover game. He had 7 to my 1. Led the time of possession, red zone, offensive TDs. Pretty much all red zone efficiency I led. There's nothing else there. Let's take a look at the player stats. So Dylan McCaffrey had a good game. 90.5 rating, 207 on passing yards, 1 for 1, and a TD to interception ratio. Completed 63% of his passes. On the other end, you had Amari Rodgers, who could not throw the ball to save his life. As you can see here, he was 8 for 24 with 33% completion, 5 interceptions and OTDs, and then he put in Mitchell Trubisky, who didn't fare any better. 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was 1 for 3 with the same completion percentage, so neither of them could really throw the ball. But Amari Rodgers, as you see here, did his damage on the ground. He had 9 rushes for 105 yards, a couple of touchdowns. He fumbled a couple of times. As you can see, his long was a 70-yard run. I mean, this guy was a monster. Auto break tackle pretty much all throughout. I don't think he really pulled a spin or a juke on me. It was just Amari Rodgers being a monster and running through tackles like he was Adrian Peterson in his prime or something. Max Borghi got the start. As you see, 21 carries, 89 yards. He did have a better average per carry, but towards the end of the game, I was pretty much running out the clock, and I was just handing it off with a stacked box, and Max Borghi couldn't really get any more yardage. Same thing with Sean Shivers. He had a good game, and then ran into a stacked box, and it kind of brought down his yards per carry, but you could see he had a couple touchdowns. Keith Marshall, the Carolina's own little speedy guy. As you can see, he had 46 yards on 5 carries and a touchdown. His long was a 43, so a bulk of his carries came off one run. Cordero Patterson, he mixed in there, didn't do much. Take a look at the receiving. Trevon Grimes Trevon Grimes had 3 receptions, 42 yards, no touchdowns. Didn't use him as much. He's Once I got up early, I kind of slowed down the passing game. All the passes were pretty much dink and dunk kind of things. Mostly used the running game. Trevon Grimes, as the season went on, I got better at using him, and he's definitely going to be a problem come next season. Felton Davis, 3 receptions, 38 yards, 1 touchdown, which is great. He was able to find the end zone again. He's been my leading receiver when it comes to that. As far as Carolina, Austin Mack had 3 catches for 32 yards. And Cordell Patterson, and then Darius Mitchell, a young rookie, 6'5", 215. Good size, 2 receptions, 57 yards. Long at 31, so most of it came on 1 catch. Gronkowski as well. He had 2 receptions, 63 yards, a 49-yard reception, which was most of his yards. Max Borghi got into the mix. Nick Eubanks and Sean Shivers also got into the mix for me. Adam Thielen, Demir Bird. So a few guys got into the mix, but it wasn't a heavy passing game on either end. On Carolina's side, he just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. On my side, I was up, so I was kind of running the ball and focusing on giving Max Borghi and Sean Shivers the ball. David Andrews let up a sack. Tackles. Devin White only had 5. As you can see, some of the rookies got in. Miles Jones had 4. Manny Netherly also had 3. So a few of the young guys got involved. Devin White did play. He had a good game. As you can see, 5 tackles. Tackles for loss, Ryan Conley led. Josh Watson was right behind. Excuse me. Dontari Poe had a couple. And then you have a few here. Well, you have a bunch here with 1. As far as Carolina, the leading tacklers, Charles Snowden, 6'7", 245 pounds, big boy, right outside linebacker. He was able to get a bunch of tackles, make a bunch of plays. And then you see somebody like Ryan Conley. I think he used him mostly. I don't think he uses the 6'7" linebacker. I think it was Ryan Conley most of the time. Sacks, you got Dontari Poe and Malcolm Brown, who both ended up in the backfield and collected a sack. Interceptions, one of the young guys I put in to see what I had, Javelin Goudry, cornerback, but he has great hit power and pursuit, so I actually moved him to strong safety, and in that safety position he was able to get 3 interceptions. Devin White had 1 himself. Miles Jones, who also was able to grab 1, Jamel Dean, and then he had 1 from his rookie safety here, Brandon Radley Hills. It was kind of he sent a blitz on a play action rollout, and I kind of tossed it without really looking, and he undercut it like nothing, and it was a stupid decision by me, but I was pretty much up, and I really didn't care as much. Goudry also got involved with the pass deflections, so he had a really good game overall. Not many tackles, but a lot of plays in the passing game. So that's good. Isaac Taylor Stewart had a couple himself, and he forced fumbles. Devin White and Malcolm Brown both had a forced fumble. McLean was able to recover 1, and there was a touchdown. Excuse me. There was a touchdown off the interception from Devin White. He was able to get a pick 6, as you could see, 57 yards long. So he was pretty damn good in that game, even though he was playing against pretty much backups. But either way, pretty good game. So let's now that the season's over, let's take a look at our stats real quick. We'll go through the team, and we'll talk about underperformers, overperformers, and we'll do underperformer, overperformer, and par. So guys that kind of performed like you expected, we'll give par. Anybody that was over and under. Kyle Shermer, I would give a par. I wouldn't. I would say that's pretty much what he is. 1,900 yards on 233 attempts. Uh, had 190 yards per game, 7 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, with a 67.9 rating. Given his previous showings and what he showed, that's about par of where he is. Dylan McCaffrey, the rookie, for somebody that wasn't even expected to play, I'm gonna say he was overperformer. 58% completion percentage, 83.7 in the rating, 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. I mean, 10 interceptions not the best, but not too bad for a rookie. He could be the future going forward. We'll see. We'll see what happens next season. Shea Patterson, as a guy that was starting last year and found his way to the bench, I would say an underperformer. Just because he didn't play after being a starter last year, so that's pretty much an underperformer to a T. We'll talk about Bryce Love. Bryce Love, 149 carries, 811 yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. Averaged about 54.1 yards per game, 363 downs played. I am going to say par. I'm going off that average. I mean, he didn't see the field as much because of the kind of stacked backfield I had. So I would say he's about par. He didn't overperform or underperform in my book, but he performed like he was expected to. So par is what I'm going to go with him. Max Borghi, 54 attempts, 255 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, a couple touchdowns. I would say overperformed. I didn't even expect Max Borghi to see the field, given having Bryce Love and Najee Harris, so I would say an overperformer. Sean Shivers, I would also say an overperformer. He got a lot of carries, turned some heads, 6 touchdowns on the season, led all backs with touchdowns. So that's pretty good. He had a great year. So I would say overperformer. And now to Najee Harris, who is definitely an underperformer. 80 carries, 221 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. So he did see the end zone a little bit, but he played absolutely terrible. He might be on the move given how the backfield's looking now. We'll see what the trade market looks like, but he might be somebody that's out of the backfield. I did do a piece. Excuse me. I did do a piece about his performance and how maybe the trade of. Oops, that's me dropping my remote. Maybe the trade for Bryce Love, the drafting of Max Borghi and Sean Shivers. All 3 of those moves pretty much hurt his confidence and ruined his game because he had a great year last year and played like shit this year. As far as receiving, A.J. Brown, the leading receiver, I think he received that in receiving yards as well. Only a couple touchdowns, but I would still count him as a overperformer, given the amount of weapons and given how Felton Davis is supposed to be the number 1 option. A.J. Brown was playing well all year, so I'm going to give him an overperformer. Trevon Grimes, also an overperformer. Second in receiving, 5 touchdowns. With the wide receiver core of Philip Dorsett, A.J. Brown, Felton Davis, Trevon Grimes was kind of the odd man out, but he found his way into the lineup with an injury, and he performed very well, so I would say an overperformer. Felton Davis, I would say an underperformer. He did come on strong late in the season, but still not enough. He should be a 1,000-yard receiver with his overall. Maybe that's more of a quarterback play, but the good news is he did find the end zone a lot, which is something that he could build off of next season. We'll see how next season goes, but being fourth in receiving as the number one wide receiver is not okay. Same thing with yardage, being pretty much third. I think he would be. Yeah, he would be third. He should be above both these guys, so I would say underperformer. Rob Gronkowski, I would say par, given how old he's getting. 510 yards, 32 receptions. That's not terrible. 15.9 yards per catch. The only thing is he didn't have a lot of touchdowns, so maybe that hurts it a little bit. Maybe if he had some touchdowns, I would say overperformer, but I would say just about par. Especially with the way last season went for him, so he's kind of trending downhill, and I would say that's pretty much where he is now. Bryce Love, we already talked about. Max Borghi, already talked about. Philip Dorsett got injured. I would say an underperformer. Not really his fault. Injury kind of took a hold. So I'm not going to blame him for that. Nick Eubanks, 9 receptions, 131 yards, and a touchdown. I would say about par. Didn't expect him to take a lot of snaps away from Rob Gronkowski. He didn't, but he did make a few catches. Got into the end zone once. He did what I expected from a rookie tight end that's pretty much in a run-heavy type of offense, and you know, with a wide receiver call like I had, you're not really feeding the tight ends as much. Jack Doyle, par. Everybody else really doesn't matter. I'm just gonna go off the big names. Blocking, we'll go with the starters. Dave Andrews, 5 sacks in 16 games, 185 downs, 855 downs played. I'm going to say that's about par, not an overperformer. I would say about par. He's performing the way you would think. Shaq Mason, I would say overperformer. 1 sack. He's not a pass blocking right guard, but he did a very good job. 840 downs played, only 1 sack, so that's really good. Isaac Weaver, coming in as a rookie, gave up 13 sacks in 14 games played, so he pretty much averaged a sack a game. I would say, being a pass block specialist out of Old Dominion, I would say underperformer. I didn't expect double digits. If he was high in the singles, like 8, like 6 to 9, then I would say par. But he was kind of underperformer with that many sacks. Aaron Hagler, I would say overperformer. He's a lesser of the two when it comes to a pass block. Only like a 74 or 75 overall. When Isaac Weaver's up higher, better raw stats. But Hagler had a better season overall. Only 5 sacks in 14 games. He was playing that right tackle slot when Isaac was playing at left tackle, so that contributes a little bit. But I would say an overperformer. Played very well. Kalichi Osemele, I would say pretty much par of where he's supposed to be, given his overall. Tristan Crowder, another guy that's not really a pass blocker, only gave up 4 sacks. Didn't play much. I would say an overperformer. He was able to get in for 278 downs, so he was able to see quite a bit of the field. Didn't expect him to, but he did. Jackson Barden, who started over Aaron Hagler, 6 sacks in 7 games played, 179 downs. He's definitely an underperformer. And then there's really nobody else to talk about. Devin White. So he had 84 tackles, 5.5 sacks, 4 interceptions, 5 deflections, 12 tackles for loss. I will say he underperformed based on how he was last year. He didn't perform as well as he did last year. Still a decent season, but you would think finishing second overall in linebackers for the AFC, you would expect that again, but he kind of took a step back if that was possible. So we're gonna say underperformer. Jamel Dean, 4 interceptions. I'm going based off on his play, not really his stats. Uh, Saying 17 catches allowed, I will say he overperformed. He jumped into that one CB1 slot. He did a great job shutting down the #1 wide receiver in the league, statistic wise, in David Sills when we played the Cleveland Browns. He kind of filtered at the end, but he did a good job of shutting down Terrell Shavers in the first matchup. The second matchup was a little shaky, but throughout the season he was great. Really shut down wide receiver ones. You know, did his part, and he got some interceptions along the way. Made a lot of tackles. So I would say an overperformer. Harrison Smith. I have him for only half the season, but when he was in my system for half the season, he was an overperformer. Well, I would say par, given his overall. He was par. He was great. Didn't really do anything crazy. Kind of, he did what he does season in and season out in a PML. Great season. So I would say par. Josh Watson, 12.5 sacks, 59 tackles, no interceptions. Given that he was the leading sack getter last year with 15.5, he took a step back. But I will say par, because I think 12 to 15 is kind of where he's at. 10 to 15 in between there is kind of where he's at. So we'll give him par on this one. Butter Baker played a little bit, then sat at the bench. He was going to come in and be the starting safety, but he really didn't pan out as well. So I'm going to say underperformer. Vic Beasley came in hot, kind of filtered towards the end, disappeared at one point. He would have been an overperformer if he kept his ways, but he kind of fell off. I'm actually going to give him an underperformer. I expected more out of him. He's more of a pass rusher than Josh Watson. He should get 15 plus sacks, especially in this league. Isaac Taylor Stewart, somebody I picked off a practice squad, came in, played very well. I'm going to give him an overperformer because he's not really a guy you even expected to play, but he came in, did his job, did a great job on the other side of Jamel Dean after A.J. Boyer was traded. Jordan Lewis came in, did a decent job. Nothing special. I'm going to give him an underperformer. He did let up a lot in that cornerback slot, even though the catches allowed doesn't show it. I mean, he didn't have many interceptions. I would give him an underperformer, especially being the second highest rated cornerback on my squad. Samson Ubakam, he was in the starting lineup, out of the starting lineup, so I mean, it's really tough to judge. When he was in the lineup, he was all right. Nothing special, kind of what I expected. So I would say pretty much par. Malcolm Brown, given how the run defense was this year, it was kind of lackluster. Kind of gave up a lot, but he did get out of the quarterback a lot, so that's a positive for Malcolm Brown. So he kind of one hand was, strong, the other hand was weak. Rush defense was kind of weak on his end, but the pass rush was pretty good, so I'm going to give him a par. He kind of canceled himself out there. Abdul Malik McLean, the rookie, came in. He wasn't supposed to, he did see a lot of passing downs, 382 downs played. He had a couple interceptions. Or, no, he had just one interception. I thought he had a couple. 1.5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 34 tackles. Pretty much par of what I thought he would be. Devin McCarty didn't see the playing field much. 590 downs played though, so he saw it more than I even thought. Probably in that big nickel. 3 interceptions, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 33 tackles. Kind of par of where he's at now in his career. Tadaro Slayton, he's kind of in a loaded defensive line. he didn't see the field much, did he? 496. So he saw the field pretty good. 3.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 29 tackles. When he was in there, he was kind of unnoticeable. Maybe he's still a step or two behind, so he's pretty much par of where you would think. He hasn't really performed at a high level to really say that he underperformed. Danny Shelton, 7 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 28 tackles. He is an underperformer. Doesn't really do much. He's unnoticeable half the time. But I mean, 28 tackles only, 7 for loss. So doesn't really perform in the pass rushing. And the run game was atrocious this year. So Danny Shelton was an underperformer. Miles Jones didn't see much of the field, I don't believe. 256 downs played, so he didn't see much of the field. When he was on, he performed decently. I would see an overperformer. That's somebody you didn't think would even see the field. Fabian Moreau, underperformer. He was a starter as a safety, kind of lost that position. Fell into the depth chart a little bit and didn't really see the field, so he's an underperformer. Trey Flowers, he did actually end up playing a lot, 301 downs, so he played enough. Only 2 sacks, extreme underperformer. Terrible, pretty much. Jalen Redmond, rookies, 275 downs. I'm going to say underperformer, given how much he's played and his pass rushing ability. He should at least have a couple sacks. Malik McDowell had a couple of sacks himself, and he only saw 114 downs. So he's a overperformer. He might see more time just given on his performance here. I didn't even notice that. He's going to probably see a little more playing time. 25 years old. Decent block shedding, decent power move, decent strength. 6'6", 299. Kind of my size for a defensive end in my 3-4 scheme, so he could see the field a lot more. Javelin Goudry, most of his performance came from that last game. It might have all been from that last game, so overperformer, 4 interceptions in 1 game. So, I mean, he was a late season pickup, and he kind of took the world by storm in that last game. So I'm gonna say overperformer based on how much time he saw. Kick return, doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's pretty much the underperformers, overperformers through the whole stat sheet. Let's take a look. Let's take a quick look at the awards before I head out. Actually, we'll save that for the next team video. We gotta separate some of this because I'm gonna still do 2 more team videos. But that's pretty much gonna do it. We got some negotiating to do. We'll see how hard Harrison Smith regresses. That'll be a big indication on if he resigns or not. But yeah, pretty much we got a boatload of underperformers, par performers, some guys that performed really well that might see more playing time. Maybe some guys that end up on a move to make room for some of the guys that are performing. We'll see. But that's pretty much going to do it for the team video. Again, this is Nefarious. Thank you for sticking around, watching, and paying attention. Without the 0 friends I have, I would be nothing. But yeah, hopefully next season we put a better season together. Please stick around for the off season. I'll be doing more team videos, even though we are not in the playoffs. Y'all have a good night.